Oh, good evening, everybody. Closing out the last day of January here. Heading along further into 2017. Clear skies, and we came up to near 80 degrees today. Definitely doesn't feel like the last day of January. This is the temperature anomaly map for this afternoon, and pretty much everywhere in the central and eastern part of the country, except for New England, above normal. And here's the temperatures we had across the U.S. this evening. These are max temperatures, and you can see DFW managed to get up to 80 degrees there, and 70s just about everywhere across the southern U.S. These high temperatures are pretty much normal for around May 2nd. And out here in Atlanta, in Georgia, those temperatures are normal for around April 17th. So we are looking at some pretty abnormal weather here. Let's take a look at the frontal analysis, and we'll just kind of do this very quickly. The main baroclinic zone across the northern U.S. So we're going to look at a warm front probably in Kansas out to the Memphis area, coming in through the central Rockies right there, and then kind of leading back across northern California to the next Pacific system. Doesn't look like it's moved a bit over the past few days. Still way out there in the eastern Pacific. The main core of polar air over the Hudson Bay region right here. And we don't have very much of a cold air pattern up north, but there is some cold air advection in the northern plains here. But as we saw with those high temperatures, not too much cold air up to the north. But we're going to take a look at Alaska real quick because there are some changes coming this way. And before I do that, I'll just say hello to everybody here. And let's see, we got Sue and Andrew and Alexi. Jason Boggs is here. The Skinny, or the Skinny. Ron from Southern California. Brian Harp. Have Alexi here. Pampa, Texas, 75 degrees, according to Jason Boggs. Kevin McKinney here. And also Sarah. And Andrew says, I need to move south. Okay, well, let's see here. Here's Alaska. And Siberia, located right off here to the left. And we can see that the main core of polar air in that region is in pretty much right there in Siberia right here. So we've got a little bit of a cold front working its way across this Sea of Chukchi here. Chukchi or Chukchi, something like that. Anyway, it starts with C there, but this is like northwest of Barrow, Alaska. This is kind of a noteworthy system because this will be the upper level pattern supporting this system is moving southeast. And we've seen some major changes in the model forecast over the next 5 days. This is the model run that we had last night and or yesterday, and I'll show you what it was forecasting. Okay, the area you're going to want to watch is up here in northern Alaska. So let me make sure that frame is in place. Okay. So what we see right here up in northern Alaska is this big trough working southward. And then it kind of digs in and shears off. And then you see this low near Juneau, Alaska. So where does that low head? This is February 3rd. So according to this model, that low was going to just kind of recede westward in this Rex block area. And then we see it kind of like orbit around this trough here. And as a result, there's not much of an effect on the U.S. Well, here's what the latest models had starting last night. Okay, so once again we look up in Alaska and run this forward. Here comes that trough. And then it shears off, and you see it kind of drifting in Juneau, the Juneau-Ketchikan area. So does it head westward? Well, no, it decides it wants to open up and deepen and, well, I should say close off and deepen. And now we've got a big trough off the northwest coast. And now look at where it heads on the 6th, 7th, and 8th. Heads southeastward into the plains. And we end up with a very deep trough over the Midwest and central U.S. So that's going to have quite a big effect on the Great Plains next week. All right, so let's see. I'm not sure if I want to go into that just yet. We'll see that on the GFS run. But we might as well take this opportunity right now just to look at a couple soundings. I'm going to pull up Fort Worth, and you can see skies were clear here today in Texas. Sounding profile shows a pretty warm column here. So we're looking at temperatures near 77 at the ground. Lapse rate fairly steep, almost a dry adiabatic, but we have very dry air near the surface here. Very large relative humidities due to the spread between the moisture and the temperature line. And we'll take a look at Dodge City real quick. Should see a very similar picture, maybe a little bit of mid-level moisture here. And since we got a couple of viewers in Indiana, I'll pull up Wilmington, Ohio. And there we see more upper level moisture. So this is going to be associated with cirrus and some altocumulus. And kind of a dry layer in here above 5,000 feet. But overall, this is a fairly stable profile here. Just a little bit of steep lapse rates in the lower levels, and that would be conducive for some stratocumulus right in that layer right there. So let's take a look at the surface chart and see what's going on. You can see a little bit of that system up in Alaska, a bit of cyclonic flow here, very strong gusty winds along the Arctic slope. Then we take that down into the central U.S., very quiet conditions. Got a south flow set up here, and a bit of a frontal boundary located just south of Wichita, north of Amarillo. And this is pretty close to where we saw that on that model analysis. And as we go up in Ohio and Indiana, there's a little bit of that stratocumulus up there that we saw in the soundings. That's kind of in the wake of that Alberta clipper that we had moved through, and cold air advection sweeping in behind that. So I think we can go ahead and head into the forecast. There's not much to talk about tonight. Okay, so let me get the model chart set up here. Okay, so this is starting out tonight, and you can see the thickness gradient up to the north. So that's going to place the fronts kind of like this. And what happens with that boundary? Looks like it sags south over the next 24 hours. So for tomorrow's webcast, we're going to see that starting to sneak a little bit into Texas. But it's going to be a very shallow boundary because we don't see much progress in the high plains. Here in Colorado, Pueblo, and Tucumcari, the front doesn't make much progress into that terrain. So when we come on for Thursday, looks like the front sags a little bit further south into East Texas and into the Austin area, but most of the cold air will be staying well up to the north. And let's see, we're getting up to the 3rd and 4th. So this is when we're starting to watch out to the west for that system to start organizing. You can see up there in the Pacific Northwest, cyclonic flow and a lot of precip in that area. So that'll start coming over the Rockies on the 7th and 8th. And here's that system setting up in the Great Plains. This is on the 7th at 18Z. So we're probably looking at something like this for the fronts. Warm front up through Indiana and Illinois like that. Then let's see, for our webcast on the Tuesday evening next week. Looks like maybe a few showers developing out there in Illinois. And we end up with a 982 millibar low over the Chicago area. And a pretty good comet cloud back behind that. So we know that this is way back there over Alaska, the disturbance that's going to cause this. So we may see some changes in the charts over the next few days as the data comes together. But in the wake of that, pretty good push of cold air southward. 540 line coming into Texas, and even the 522 coming into Amarillo and Wichita. So right down there like that. There's that cold push, and then by the 9th and 10th, system going up into Quebec, and there's the front right there. Lots of cold air advection into the central U.S., and then we get a bit of a warm-up here in the Great Plains on the 10th and 11th. And then things look pretty quiet, a little bit of a Pacific system moving in here. There's the leading edge of that. That'll come in on the 14th, and some cold air advection back behind that. And then we get to the end of the run. Well, we can compare the GFS with some of the other products, and we'll compare the, let's try the GFS chart. We'll go to the 8th at 12Z and look at the temperature field at 850. So on the 8th at 12Z on Wednesday morning here, low pressure there over Chicago. And we're looking at the 5 Celsius line coming all the way down from that system into the Oklahoma City area, then back to Denver and maybe into the Great Basin area. So how do the other models compare? Well, like I've shown you on previous webcasts, this is where we can compare this with the European model. So what does the ECMWF show? Well, we can see the -5 line is where we go from turquoise to medium blue. So that's going to be this line right here. So from Chicago, yeah, that matches up pretty good down to Oklahoma City, but we see a little bit more of a push into Illinois, sweeping back on the south side of that low-pressure system. And that reminds me of the big cold air outbreak back in '82. I don't know how many people remember that outbreak. Trying to remember if that was 82 or 78. I actually think that was 1978, January 78. But there was a major cold air advection push on the south side of that low, which was over the Chicago area. And that blasted westward, and they had some major wind damage in Illinois and Indiana. I don't really think that's going to happen this time around, but system's certainly not that strong, but this reminds me a little bit of that, with that very strong 55 millibar flow at 850 coming in back here. So European model going a little bit stronger with that cold push like that. And then down in the Central Plains, 5 Celsius line, pretty much on par with the GFS. So what does the Canadian model have? Canadian model going with a much different picture, kind of the outlier. Low pressure system over Quebec and nothing in the Chicago area, but it is kind of on board with bringing the -5 line in the same area. So going likewise with a cold push into the Central Plains here. And then we can look at one more model. I think I had the JMA. This is the Japanese model. This is a global spectral model. And it looks like it is splitting the difference, going with a low-pressure system up in around North Bay, Ontario, Lake Superior. Very strong push of cold air on the south side of that, and the 5 Celsius line coming a little further southeast into Kentucky and Ohio, and then maybe a little bit less of a push into the Central Plains. So the Japanese model going a little bit more southeast and east with this system. So anyway, those are some things to look at, and I'll take a quick look at chat. Wow, we got quite a crowd here. Unfortunately, I'm getting towards the end of the presentation here, but I hope some of you will join us tomorrow, and we will... Oh yeah, I wanted to show you a little bit of AWIPS. AWIPS is the tool used by the National Weather Service, and let's see here. I was going to show you a little bit of the radar. There's not much to see on here right now because it's a very quiet day, but there's the radar, showing a little bit of isentropic lift up in the Des Moines, Omaha area right here. Very quiet, and this is what the 500 millibar charts look like on AWIPS, which is very cool. It's very detailed. You can see the negative vorticity very well, and a lot of internet sites aren't very good at depicting the negative vorticity. But the ridges, those matter a lot. And I'll give you a quick example of a ridge. You can see that the field here is sensitive mostly to the small scale waves, but I can pick out a little bit of a ridge right here in California. So if we look downstream from that, we're going to have probably some good weather in Nevada tonight. A little bit of anticyclogenesis and subsidence. And most of this flow through here is channeled. This is what we call channeled flow because the vorticity contours, the red, I guess Slim Jim shaped contour here, red thing, that's vorticity, and you can see it parallels the contours very closely. So this is what we call channeled vorticity, and this indicates that most of our vertical motion is being associated with the jet stream. And then when we have advection lobes, like what you see here in Quebec, these are going to be your short waves. So these are waves moving through the flow, and we can see a little bit of that with the contours kind of waving back and forth like that. But unfortunately it is a quiet night, and I'll have to show you more of this on a night where we have weather taking place. Oh, here's a good channeled flow. A little bof a jet max rounding the bend right here. Right there over Vancouver Island into Quileute. So most of your lift is going to be in this region here. That's the left front quadrant of that jet. And then you're going to have subsidence back behind that. Anyway, that's in my weather analysis and forecasting book and some of my other titles, and you can find that on the internet too. I'll give you a quick hint on how to find that. Just put in 4-cell jet into your search engine, and I come up with batteries here. So let's try jet stream and vertical motion. That's a good one. And that gives you a few hints right there, theoretical principles for jet streams and fronts. And if you go to images, you should be able to pull up a few samples. And there you go. So this here shows you your left front quadrant. And that's that jet max we were talking about over Victoria or Vancouver Island. So anyway, that's another thing for you to check out. And if you want to get into more detail, there's probably some websites that go into more detail. This looks like one here. Jeff Habe. Yeah, he's got a good site. So he's got one on the 300, 200 millibar chart. And it looks like he's got that pretty well diagrammed here, talking about jet maxes, and looks like he's got a good explanation here of pressure gradient forces within a jet streak. So if we do a dynamics episode, that might be a good thing to cover here. Consider there's a lot to talk about here. Yep, he's got a lot of content on that page. So I'm not sure how to get to that. I guess you would just have to go to his website, look for 300, 200 chart. Or if you want to freeze frame the playback of the archive, you can just put that in right there. Okay, I think that's about all I got for tonight, and let me just take a quick look at chat. National Weather Person's Day on Sunday. All right. Winter storm for Indiana next week, possibly. I don't think that's been officially declared or anything. I think they're probably waiting for that to get closer. But that's certainly a possibility. Getting nice there in Medford. Tim, would be cool to show a quote from the Tao of Forecasting at the end of each show. Yeah, I haven't remembered that. It's been a while since I have seen that, but that's one idea. Geostrophic adjustment. Yeah, Herbicide is awesome. Weatherprediction.com. But I was surprised to see this. This was on the weather.gov site, so I guess they know where to get some good explanations to put on there. All right, I think that's it. My dinner is waiting in the other room, so I'm going to go grab that. Anyway, I appreciate you watching, and hopefully we'll see you tomorrow night. Take care.